Hello, welcome to the next episode, Chapter 5, The Factor Tapes. Enjoy this, it's very interesting. Chapter 5, The Factor Tapes. When Mark and Larry finally reached Loy's home on February 11th, 1993, they were surprised to find that he had developed a serious heart problem and was in a nearby hospital. The two men, along with Ron Atterbury, another researcher, drove to the hospital and walked into Loy's hospital room, tape rolling. Loy was, to say the least, surprised by his visitors, but was very friendly, and after a few minutes of conversation began to remember Mark. It had, after all, been over 20 years. To assure Loy that he believed him to be innocent of his wife's murder, Mark said, "I don't know if you remember me, but I spent a lot of time up there with you going over the trial transcripts, and I want you to know that I believe you. I believe it was your stepdaughter." "Yeah, it was her," Loy responded. "I believe it was," Mark reiterated. "It was her, and she'd done all this, and I went through this whole thing." "You told me that she did it for money." "Yeah," Loy replied. "Do you remember telling me that?" "Yeah, her and that boy she was with." "What was his name?" "Sam Davis." "Yeah, Sam Davis. He died, you know. He used to come up there and he'd hang around all the time, you know. Tried to take her off. He caused a lot of trouble." Then Mark carefully addressed the subject of the assassination. "Loy, do you remember how you told me you got the money, the $10,000? "Yeah." "That you were involved down there with Kennedy?" "Yeah." "And how you went to Sam Rayburn's funeral and that fella contacted you on the street? Remember telling me that?" "Yeah." You were involved with that, weren't you?" "Yeah, I was kinda. I was a little bit in it." "We'd like to know the true story. Doesn't scare you to talk about it, does it?" "No." Loy's reluctance to elaborate was understandable. Confined to a hospital bed, two strangers and one barely recognizable old friend barge in, asking probing questions about his sordid past. Furthermore, the Indian was sedated. Nevertheless, his memory was still sharp enough to recall many details of the past. "What did they pay you the $10,000 to do?" Loy stammered through an unconvincing explanation of how he merely assisted the group, that the woman was the radio operator, Oswald and the man who hired Loy were the shooters, and that he had been nothing more than some sort of backup. He reaffirmed the story of Sam Rayburn's funeral and his chance meeting with the stranger, and the target practice incident, and his being picked up and driven to Dallas 2 days before the assassination. He told of the little house that served as the base of operation and individuals at the house, including the appearance of Jack Ruby and Lee Oswald. He stated that after the shots were fired, everyone but Oswald escaped out the back door of the book building, while he and the young woman were leading the way. Larry Howard prodded Mark to ask the Indian about the elevator. "Did you use the elevators or the stairs?" Mark asked. "We went by the stairs." "So you went out the back of the building?" "Yeah, back towards the north side." The back door did face north. Loy was very exact when it came to directions. "What did the back look like when you went out? When you went out the back, north, like? It looked like some kind of dock." "Dock?" "Yeah, dock." "Like a loading dock?" "Yeah." "Was it concrete?" "It was like a porch, kind of like a porch." Mark, Larry, and Ron looked at each other and then at Loy. Larry was impressed with this small detail that the man had just related. How did this man know that in 1963 the Texas School Book Depository had on its north side a loading dock? It was later removed. "This guy knows what he's talking about," Mark whispered to Larry. Loy added that when he exited the back of the building, no one was there since everyone was out in front watching the motorcade. Loy and the young woman got into a car and drove away from the scene. The woman then drove Loy to the Greyhound bus depot. "The bus depot is where Oswald went after the shooting," Larry informed Mark. Loy was getting very tired at this point, and so the interviewers decided to cut it short and come back the next day, to which Loy agreed. At this point, before leaving, Mark exhorted Loy to allow us to write a book about his involvement with the assassins, the truth about his wife's murder and his life story. Loy consented, but insisted that if any story was written, it must contain the truth. Mark assured him that finding the truth was the very reason he had come all the way to Oklahoma. The next morning, the trio arrived at the hospital with a list of more questions, but were informed by the nursing staff that Factor no longer wished to see the visitors. Mark was disappointed, but was heartened when Larry reminded him that the Indian's reaction was quite normal under the circumstances. He had probably pondered overnight about what he had told the three visitors and had become afraid. We decided to give it a rest for a few weeks, then make a written request for another interview. Under the circumstances, that was all we could do. Weeks later, to our delight, Loy responded favorably to our request. He had been released from the hospital and was back home again. With Loy's fragile health temporarily in our favor, we made immediate plans to fly to Oklahoma.